who they voted for and against in this election. Today, you will hear more about our resounding victory from the leading co-chairs of this campaign. Lauren Kigali, Executive Director of the ACLU of Michigan. Summer Foster, Executive Director of Michigan Voices. I am not used to this at a news conference. Nicole Wells Stallworth, Executive Director of Planned Parenthood Advocates of Michigan. I will turn it over to Lauren Kigali.
Thank you, Darcy. Good afternoon. The votes have been counted, and the people of Michigan have restored the reproductive rights that they have had for 50 years into the state constitution. Proposal 3's passage marks a historic victory for abortion access in this state and in our country, and Michigan has paved the way for future efforts to restore the rights and protections of Roe versus Wade nationwide. It's very drafty. This historic victory will protect health care for generations of Michigan women and Michigan families. Michigan's Constitution will now clearly, explicitly include the right to reproductive freedom for all, which means the right to make and carry out decisions without political interference about all matters relating to pregnancy, including birth control, abortion, prenatal care, and childbirth. This election further highlighted the importance of expanding voting access and encouraging civic participation. We won this campaign with all kinds of voters in all kinds of places. Small counties like Ogeechee County in an entirely different time zone, Kalamazoo County, Wayne County, large counties, small counties, and everywhere in between. And the last ballot in this initiative was cast in this election at 2 a.m. by a college student who registered using same-day registration. Voters knew what was at stake and were determined to use their vote to make their voices heard. I'm going to turn this over to my friend and my colleague, Summer Foster.
Good afternoon. This campaign was the first of its kind. We were one of 5 states where abortion was on the ballot this year. But Michigan is now the first state in the nation to pass an affirmative, citizen-led, constitutional amendment to guarantee the right to an abortion. The passage of Proposal 3 will make Michigan's 1931 abortion ban unenforceable. No longer will decisions made by women and their families concerning their reproductive health be subject to the whims of politicians. Reproductive freedom is a guaranteed right for all in Michigan for generations to come. Communities across the state came together to create a proposal that would reflect the values of personal bodily autonomy and a policy that would be inclusive of everyone's health reproductive care needs. We want to thank the over 750,000 Michigan voters, as well as the thousands of circulators who helped us get this measure on the ballot. And now I want to turn it over to my friend Nicole.
Thank you, Summer. All right. So you're probably wondering what happens from this point. And the Michigan law includes that once the proposed amendment is approved by a majority of Michigan voters, as ours has been, it will become part of the Constitution 45 days after the election on December 23rd, 2022, rendering the 1931 criminal abortion ban unenforceable. You know, this campaign was so well put together. The campaign team assembled during the summer of 2022 and began to hold events and spread its message via TV, radio, digital, social media, direct mail, phone calls, text banking, and door-to-door canvassing, reaching millions of voters with our message, having them understand that they had the power to restore Roe here in Michigan. The Reproductive Freedom for All campaign launched a massive on-the-ground organizational campaign across the state. In all of Michigan's communities to both retain and build support. Listen, this victory is the result of the tireless work of thousands of volunteers, many coalition members from a broad array of backgrounds, medical organizations, and a broad array of allies and advocates, including labor and faith organizations. We could not do it without you. We are standing here before you to say thank you, thank you, thank you. We want to thank those who've endorsed our campaign. We want to thank our donors. We want to thank our coalition members, the women and families who shared their stories. We want to thank the thousands of doctors and nurses who advocated for women and their families to make their own decisions and to maintain their own bodily autonomy and to keep government out of their decisions. Organizations like the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Citizens to Protect Healthcare, the Michigan Nurses Association, and Physicians for Reproductive Health all stood at the helm of the Reproductive Freedom for All initiative to say, we won't go back. We're going to restore Roe here in Michigan. Our resounding victory now provides a model for the future of coalition-based reproductive ballot initiatives all across the country. And this campaign raised more money than any other ballot committee in Michigan history. The campaign was fueled by contributions from everyday citizens, more than 32,000 individual donors and online contributions, which averaged about $61 per person. This is historic, and we stand here before you in a victory for reproductive freedom for all to say thank you once again. I'm going to bring back Darcy McConnell.
Thanks, everyone. At this time, we'll entertain any questions. Sure. We had people from all walks of life, as we said before, who supported this campaign. We're proud of that effort. We raised over $40 million to support all of those things that we talked about, to get out the vote, to get on the airwaves, to get in front of folks where they interact. And so we're proud of the fundraising efforts that we undertook because it helped us run a successful campaign.
Expected that there will be some challenges in court. So what's next for you guys?
What's next is we're going to celebrate that we have restored reproductive rights in Michigan and enshrined it in our Constitution, and we're very excited about that. There'll be plenty of time to sort of delve into, but today is just about celebrating this victory for Michiganders, this historic victory, both from a local standpoint and a national standpoint. This is historic. People said affirmatively they wanted to protect their abortion rights in Michigan. And so that's what today is about, to celebrate it, all those folks who put in the hard work and talk about why this is so important. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to. Okay, all right. Yes.
Is there a fight ahead at all?
What's that?
Is there a fight ahead?
Today we're here to talk about the campaign and celebrate the victory. There'll be plenty of time to do look-aheads.
I had two questions. One, you mentioned turnout, so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more on the details of your guys' Get Out the Vote effort. And two, Nicole, I think you mentioned
next steps? Have you had talks with any other states this morning or in the past few weeks that are exploring potential ballot measures for 2023 and 2024?
So I think Nicole can, and maybe other folks can speak to that part, the second part, but we had a very aggressive get out the vote effort, as I mentioned before, in terms of knocking doors, in terms of making phone calls, in terms of texts, in terms of attending community meetings, attending churches. Again, it's about meeting people in their space. People get information in different spaces, and so we did everything we could to connect with voters across the state. And Nicole can speak to the second question.
So can you just repeat that second part of your question for me so that I can answer it correctly for you?
Yeah, no problem. Have you had conversations today or in the past few weeks on other states that are exploring potential ballot measures for 2023, 2024?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's been very obvious, given the national narrative and the reversal of Roe v. Wade by the United States Supreme Court, that many states have already lost access. So we know that about 1/3 of the entire country has lost access to abortion almost completely. And so Michigan has really been serving as shining light in that regard and an example as to how we might be able to use our tools of democracy and citizen-led initiatives to be able to restore those rights that we know also that the overwhelming number of citizens across the country and Michiganders want abortion to remain legal. That has been demonstrated in this election. As it relates to how we're interacting and sharing that information with other states, we continue to be open to making certain that the lessons learned are available to other states as they begin to explore what tools that they can use. The challenge is that every state does not have a citizens-led initiative or a constitutional amendment available to them. In some states, a citizens-led initiative, a constitutional amendment, has to be legislatively referred. And so Michigan is unique in that regard, where we were able to have citizens serve as the legislators in this case and weigh in on this issue in a very real way and prove to everyone that they want abortion to remain legal, and we've done that, and that's why we're here to celebrate. And I think that as we move forward, Michigan will serve as an example to those states that we more than certainly can be an example to.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wondering, do you have like a final tally in terms of how many volunteers did sign up with your group, or do we also have a number for the total dollar amount that you were able to raise throughout this campaign?
We gave the dollar amount, but it was more than $40 million was raised for the campaign, and then thousands of volunteers. So safe rather than give an exact number.
Okay, and in terms of dollars kind of still left, I mean, has all of that been expended? Do we have a sense of kind of where this funding might go to?
I think we'll have that information at our next filing deadline. But just trust that we put it all out there to make sure that we could be victorious in the campaign. Any other questions?
I'm curious, what's your message to the, I mean, obviously you have a resounding victory, but there's still many people who voted against it. What's your message? A lot of people may still believe some of what they heard in the commercials and things of that nature. What would you say to those folks?
Actually, I beg to differ. I think voters were very clear. They spoke with a loud voice and said, we know what this is. It's restoring Roe. It's keeping the reproductive rights that we had under Roe v. Wade, protecting abortion access that we've enjoyed for the last 50 years. And that's why we were able to prevail, because they did understand what was at stake here.
But the people, there's obviously still people who voted against it. What would your message be to them?
That it's unfortunate that our radical opponents tried to confuse things with disinformation. Those who voted in support understood what was at stake. Our doctors told us that people could die. And so hopefully now that we have this protection in the Constitution, we'll save lives. Any other questions? Yes.
Did you learn anything about whether or not this was a partisan issue? In other words, were there Dixon Prop 3 voters that you're aware of? Or
I could answer that unless one of our partners wants to answer it. Okay, all right. Oh, Nicole, you said you would take it. Go ahead.
We are such a great team. We just work so well together, and it's fine. You know, I think the important thing to note here about this is that it's important to really underscore the value of having a citizens-led initiative that Planned Parenthood of Michigan, ACLU of Michigan, and Michigan Voices facilitated. We had millions of people to vote yes on this measure. And those people came from, as was mentioned, all across our state. We had Republicans, independents, Democrats voting yes on Proposal 3 because of the value that Proposal 3 represents, which is reproductive freedom. So we've learned this throughout our process, and we've maintained this throughout this process, that this is not a political campaign. This is about reproductive freedom. This is about health care. This is about privacy. This is about keeping politicians and government out of people's medical rooms and the decisions that need to be held between a person and their doctor. And the voters have agreed with that, and they have affirmed that in a big way today. And we're really happy to be celebrating that.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much for attending our news conference today. Have a good afternoon.